just saw it the other night at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. You actually can just notice we have I have my little
There
print.
it is.
Yeah, there it is right there behind me. Folks, I'll put a link below. We have some other footage just from our experience in the theater in a separate video, so people on YouTube can check that out. But as always, like the theater is it's one of my favorites. Actually, in LA now that the ArcLight Theater is currently closed, it's my favorite movie theater for these big experiences, like a big hall, classic Hollywood, legacy history there, great audience, incredible sound, and one of the bigger IMAX screens, not the biggest, but one of the bigger screens in LA. And it's just a fun time for a movie, not premiere, but first night. I love going to that theater. What are your Chinese? You have a good time?
It's so great. I mean, yeah, we both missed the art line, especially the dome. But I think
Yeah.
outside of that, just because few people live around where the Chinese theater is, so it feels like, oh, you're driving up to watch a movie. That in itself feels like special and makes it a bit of an event. And then you get there, and even though Hollywood, Walk of Fame, all that is a bit of a mad show.
Yeah, it's an
And
experience.
people who don't live in LA, who's never visited LA, like I had not for a while, and I had this impression of, oh, this is like a really fun place. And then you get there and you're like, oh, okay, maybe not so much.
Right.
That said, the Chinese theater still has so much of just legacy and history attached to it. I'm still always fascinated by just looking at the structure outside, and all the handprints and what have you. Like, it just, it's a classic Hollywood icon, really. And then as a theater itself, like it makes it really special. Like, it's so hard right now in the lives that we lead, where how do you like really turn off your phone, really turn off your brain, even if your phone is off, and
Right.
you're always sort of distracted to a point. And I feel like whenever I watch a movie at the Chinese theater, it's probably the most immersive experience, because the screen is so huge and the sound is great, and you made this trek to get there. There's something about the combination of all of those that makes it really special, and this was no exception.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and in good audiences too. I mean, the theater wasn't like
Yeah.
100% full, but probably like 80%. People cheering at the right moments,
And
cheering
people
it.
dress up, and
Yeah.
it's like a thing in
Yeah,
LA.
it's a destination, like you said, to
Yeah.
go to this movie palace, for lack of a better word. And
Yeah.
especially for a movie like this, which is so much about the visuals and being transported. So we did see the movie. So the Chinese theater is an IMAX theater. So we saw the movie in IMAX 3D with a high frame rate. And as Jim intends, right? And I think that is very important for a film like this, to really feel like you are completely immersed in the giant screen, the 3D, which I do think the high frame rate really helps with the 3D too. A format that I don't like high frame rate on its own, or really 3D, except when I'm going to Pandora. I think of this as the only time I will only try to watch the film in 3D. So yeah, maybe we can
Yeah.
jump in then to our thoughts on the film, which I really enjoyed. So briefly, like we talked about actually the first two avatars are already on the show, so I'll post the links below. I've been a fan since the first movie, though it did grow on me over time. Like I wasn't immediately like, oh my God, I love this when I saw the first one. Over time, grown to appreciate it. Very excited about this, and I think it was another a fantastic entry in the franchise. Is my high level view of it. But
Mm.
what are your thoughts on the film?
No, I liked it too a lot. And I've maybe even said this on the podcast before, like I'm not the biggest Avatar head. And of course, the first movie was sort of kind of such a game changer in terms of filmmaking. You've never seen anything like it. So the spectacle of it and the jaw-dropping immersiveness of that is, undeniable, of course. But I also found myself never ever coming back to that movie, and for that matter, even the second one, because it almost feels like, yeah, you've had this sort of like destination experience and then you're done.
Hmm.
Like, am I going back to Disneyland or whatever over and over again in the course of a year? I mean, many do. I don't, right? So
Right, right.
it's sort of similar to that, that when you're there, you really admire the technology, his obsession with this world and all of that, and how did they do it and what have you. But then I just forget everything after, what really happened in the story and such. So when this one was coming around, and just knowing that there are many more potentially that are supposed to be out there, I was a little bit like, is this just enough? Are we done?
Hmm.
I wasn't going in with the most amount of excitement, to be very honest. But then showing up to it, you just get swept up, in the immersiveness and the experience. And we'll talk more as we get into the movie.
Hmm.
That to me, this movie, even though I've read that this is a rehashing of the same story as the previous one, which I have very little memory of, so that
Hmm.
didn't bother me because I'd forgotten it. And so overall, I really enjoyed it. I was really kind of transported, which is what he intends. But the surprise for me in this was the character development and the relationships and such. And, he gets a lot of bad rep for cheesy dialogue and all of that stuff. And the previous movie definitely had a lot of those and some like not so great performances. I didn't feel that this time. I was pretty locked in with the quieter moments and the relationship dynamics. Is it a perfect movie? No. Is it overstuffed and bloated? Yes. Does the climactic act, though jaw-dropping and all of that, does it start to, become your not typical because every moment of this movie is better than any superhero movie that you've seen. But
Hmm.
it reminded me of those sort of bloaty, third acts that a lot of the superhero movies have. And that's what I know my body language that I'm getting shifty and I'm
Uh-huh.
getting something is, not really locking in. So there was some of that here. I think there's too many things going on that they actually lose sight of some of the amazing things that they could have explored and just stuck to those. But overall, I had a great time. And I might, dare I say it, I want to watch it again. I have not said that
Wow.
for an Avatar movie.
Wow. You want a return trip. Yeah, I feel that the best way to sum this movie up is it's like a retread of the second one, but I don't say that in a bad way. Like it's more of the same, which for James Cameron actually is really rare, and we'll talk a little bit more in
Mm.
the review about my thoughts with Jim in this movie. But it is taking the last movie and kind of going deeper, I think, into the characters and the emotion, which is what Jim Cameron is incredibly good at too. He does all of his movies start with the character and emotion, and this movie I think ramps it up even more with what Natiri and grieving over the death of their son that happened in the last movie, and how she's the anger that she feels towards the humans and even her own adopted kid and the adopted kid, the spider, the human character in here, like how his dynamic with his kind of dad, even though now his corpse is in this other body, so it is, but isn't his dad. How he's like is still saving him, and they're both kind of saving each other, and there is something that they have bond between each other. Like a lot of fathers and sons have difficulties, right? But there's still that love there, even though it's like a hard dad and like, oh, I hate you, dad, kind of moment things. There's that dynamic going on where that character and Jake too is kind of wrestling with like, do I fight? I now he the end of the last movie was all about like, okay, now I'm gonna fight. I'm not gonna run. So like, how do I fight? Without sort of losing sight of my own humanity, even though he's a Navi, but like kind of getting sucked in and becoming one with the enemy, even though you're kind of using violence, much like the Ash people in this movie, which were the sort of the new dynamic. Right now, we have this other Avatar tribe that is vicious. They're angry, they're vengeful, they're very violent. They immediately want the guns and want to take all the humans, technology to use against other Navi. So it's like I think Jake's sort of being like, do I want to go that route, or is there some way I can resist? So that I think is the core of this movie is that like much like Jim Cameron's movies too. There's so much of this movie is just like dialogue, character development, and then there's this giant action set piece. He spends a lot of time developing and working on characters and the relationships in this movie. That's why the movie's 3+ hours. It's not because there's
Mhm.
endless amounts of action. There's a great set piece in the beginning and a great set piece at the end. But really, the bulk of like the middle of this movie is just characters dealing with their own issues and their own relationships, which is why I think the movie is captivating in that sense. It's
Yeah.
not just about the spectacle. The spectacle's there, but you do care about these characters. I mean, maybe not when you leave the theater, to your point. These might not stay with you forever, where you're thinking about Jake and Natiri for, the times when you're not in the movie. When you're in the movie, you're locked in that world. And I think that's why these movies are so captivating, when you're watching them.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I think with this movie, and I don't know, maybe just I just found myself in a headspace where I was even more open to it, or the
Mhm.
fact that it's the third one. So, even we've seen these people now a few times, but
True.
this time, yeah, the relationship dynamic and the character development just really worked for me. Actually, I am thinking about these people,
Mm.
even though the movie's over. So clearly something clicked with me this time. And I think it is because he spends a lot of time just showing these people just being people, like there are moments of just the kids bonding, playing, being
Hmm.
mischievous, what have you. And you can sort of argue, oh, this is like throwaway stuff, but no, it actually matters. And especially when the surroundings in which they are so transportive and just fully realize that you are there with them. And, it's amazing. And then when you have I also have to say that the motion capture stuff on the face has really improved. I think that
Hmm.
I was able to clock in emotions of all the characters really well. Because typically it's really Zoe Saldana who's been, I think, transcendent in these movies, that you really feel her rage and her anger and all of that and emotion, not so much the other folks. But this time, I thought every performance was really good. I was able to clock in how people were feeling, like the elder son who survived, like his dilemma. Like
Hmm.
there's so many character relationship, threads in the movie, like you were saying, grief, or how to be a dad or a different kind of dad. How do you get out of the shadow of your dad? How do you kind of get rid of the pain and the guilt of the son that you've lost, and how do you move
Hmm.
forward from that, and the impact on every member of the family, putting yourself before community, or putting yourself before ecology and the greater good, the world. Like there's so many deep themes here, which maybe is a bit of a problem too, I suppose, because there's so many deep themes that at some point it starts to kind of get a little bit jumbled up towards the end. Um, but yeah, I just love the entire relationship dynamics across the board.
Yeah,
We should talk. Oh, sorry.
just I want to piggyback what
Yeah.
you said about the motion capture, which Jim Cameron in these interviews always says it's not motion capture, it's emotion capture. Motion capture is
Oh,
not, this is new technology, but I do think that it really shines through in these performances, and also just speaks again to Jim Cameron, which we'll talk more about his films, that he is very much focused on actors and
yeah.
getting these performances out of these actors and developing this technology now that he has where the camera is recording the facial movements. So these aren't animators animating facial movements like on Jar Jar Binks or on Gollum from Lord of the
Mhm.
Rings. Those are animators making Gollum smile or get mad or Jar Jar
Right.
fall down or his facial expressions. These are the actors' performances. And especially in this movie, like I agree with you. Like when I was looking at General Quaritch, like I saw Stephen Lang's performance in there. I saw
It's
Samuel
so
L. Jackson's
good. He's amazing in the
performance.
movie.
Absolutely. They all are, especially
They
like
all
Una
are.
Chaplin too.
Oh,
Fantastic as the new
steals
fire.
the movie in many
And I
ways.
wish she was in it more, honestly. I wanted more of her and the
That's
fire
my
people.
big note, actually, is
Yeah.
that I think, yeah,
But like those the way he's able to capture the actors, and I think also this plays to how they film these movies, which is basically just the actors on an empty stage where it's just the
hmm,
director and the actors. There's no issues with camera setups and costumes and
it's pretty
set
intimate, it
designs.
seems
It's
like.
very, very intimate. And I think that really means that the actors are able to focus so much on their craft. And then the technology captures that so well that this is some of
Right.
like, I was thinking halfway through this movie, like, should Quaritch or Stephen Lang get like an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor in this? Like he was so good as this
So
character in
good.
terms of the stuff that he goes through. But no, I think you're totally right on the emotions that come through and the acting really. The focus of these movies is really kind of in the acting in a strange way. You'd think, oh, it's the Pandora and what it looks like. Yeah, that's all there. But if the acting wasn't good, then the movie would. There were so many kind of like Avatar knockoff movies that try to come out. Oh, we're building this world and like. I don't care about the world. I care about the people and the emotions in it. And then Jim Cameron
Exactly.
makes sure that that is the focus. And a lot of that comes through in the technology.
And yeah, and this one especially, because I remember the last one, I sort of had moments of kind of being drawn out because the performance was not good or the lines were bad and this and that. I didn't have that problem this time at all. I was really locked in and I actually cried in a couple of
Mm,
scenes.
yeah.
I was not expecting that because it was pretty moving to see just Neytiri and Jake, like their relationship, how they're struggling with the grief part, or what to do with Spider and
Yeah.
Lawrence
That was
Wall. That like
crazy, that
that whole
scene.
moment
Yeah.
is like incredible, absolute.
Yeah.
So and then just even the relationship between Spider and Courage, like that dynamic. And this is not giving away too much, but there's a moment at the end in the climactic act where Jake, Courage, and Spider, they're all together.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this is my quote unquote biological dad versus the dad who I really admire and want
Yep.
him to be my father. And also the two men kind of looking at each other who've been arch nemesis from the very beginning, but finding some quote unquote humanity to connect with each other.
Hmm.
It's pretty complex, that whole dynamic. It's pretty, so yeah, I was very moved in the middle of this, giant, spectacle, explosive situation. You had this sort of quiet moment between these people. I was not expecting that. So
Yeah,
that was
that's
pretty amazing.
yeah. That scene was that moment too was a highlight for me. Like
Yeah.
I took kind of a step back, not a step back, but like I was like, oh wow, this is what's going on now. The dynamic between the three, and they just the way that it all kind of comes to a head there on that rock, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, he's really landing the point here. And I do feel that this movie and the last one were very different than the first Avatar. These last two
Mhm.
movies were a lot about family
Yeah.
dynamics, fathers, sons, daughters, wives and husbands and all this stuff. This movie felt like sort of an end to that chapter in the Avatar universe of like these two are about family, and then the other ones will be other themes. And honestly, too, the other thing that I think I liked about this movie was the other sort of theme and the message of it really was like make war not peace. And then at
Mm.
some point, if you're just peace and like, oh, we can never fight, like that is actually the wrong thing to do. And the issue that there were with the whales, that whole whale council of like, oh, we never need to fight. The whales are always passive, and even though they're getting slaughtered, you can never, have violence. And then the one whale that does violence to save his, he's trying to save the rest of his family. So then he gets shunned. I just think that message of the movie, like, no, at some point, violence is justified. Violence
Mhm.
and resistance is justified, and you need to fight back. And if you
Mhm.
don't, then actually you're doing that's actually the morally wrong choice to kind
Yeah.
of like let your species get wiped out, which is what the whales, they were going to kill all the whales, like in the end of the
Yeah.
movie. And I think that was interesting. You don't really get movies, honestly, that have messages of peace is not really always the right option. And I think that is an important message, especially in this world today, just in terms of the resistance that needs to, happen across many aspects of our society, that sometimes violence is the answer. It shouldn't always be the first.
You have to
And it's,
fight
but
back.
it has to be a tool on the table, or else you will get wiped out. And that I liked that message of this movie, which is sort of like the last movie too. Like Jake kept running away from that. The whole movie was like, I'm not going to fight. I'm just going to hide. This is fine. I'm going to protect my family, and that's all that matters. And then he realized at the end of that movie that no, like if the humans are going to keep coming, I have to do something. And that is kind of what this movie also represented, at least to me, which I thought was a
Yeah.
unique message, and one that again I think is important in this day and age.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was, I didn't think about it that way during the movie, but you're totally right. Like, and that's what he's saying, which, yeah, sometimes you have to do that. Let's talk about Una Chaplin and
Yes,
and
yes.
the Ash person, who I thought was just incredible. Uh, I mean, yeah, the whole persona of this person, how she carries herself, what she stands for, how evil she is, and how seductive she is,
Hmm.
and then the relationship that she and Courage build. Like, it's pretty complex stuff. Like, it starts with, oh, there's like attraction and lure and all of that over here, but then it's also like, yeah, you found an equal,
Hmm.
and there's like genuine, at least from Courage's standpoint, it feels like he's maybe falling in love a little bit. Like
Yeah.
he's,
Yeah.
he wants to stand up against the army people and what have you, and have her there and side by side, and their forces joining, and just the revelry and that they have in like firing guns and playing with all that. It's awful. At the same time, you can't look away. Like, I
Hmm.
thought that was really well done. I just wish, this is the thing with, now maybe we can talk about that. There's so many threads in the movie that
Hmm.
this whole thread of their dynamic or her persona just kind of gets lost towards the end, because we just don't, she becomes a wife, she becomes an
Right.
army wife, it seems, at the end. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this person will not be an army wife ever,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, explore that. How would she, because she's not, she's wild, she cannot be put in this kind of establishment of like, oh, now we are all with the army, and
Hmm.
whatever Courage says we're going to do that. She's never going to do that.
Right.
So, and I'd read that the dynamic between her and Natiri was pretty interesting. They could have explored that a lot
Yeah.
more, and I was expecting a lot more interaction between the two of them. So that to me was, one of the casual, many such casualties, because when you have so many rich themes of these complex human relationships, or Navi relationships, it's hard to sort of see them through, you know. And this is the one that I felt the most bummed about because they really teased us so much with this character that I thought, oh, we'll go somewhere. I mean, her name is in the title of the movie, you know, Fire
Mm-hmm.
and Ash. Where is
Mm-hmm.
the fire? There's fire. There's no ash. I want more ash.
Yeah, this gets back to the thing that was a little surprising to me about the movie too, which is this is the first time I've ever gone into a James Cameron movie and felt that there wasn't anything new in the movie. And I was expecting, okay, the
Yeah.
last movie, Way of Water, right? It was all about, there was incredible water stuff, new water creatures, all these things. I'm like, okay, now we're going to go to the volcanic part of Pandora and see all these lava flows and
Yeah.
lava creatures. And we really saw none of that environment. And even this new tribe, which was so interesting. The way that they moved was
Right.
different. The way they look and their history is different because they don't believe in the god and they're like going this other sort of more hedonistic route, and they're not really much of a focus of the movie after like the first act. Like they're set up and then they kind of like it goes into all these other things that we've dynamics of characters we've already known and back to the water people, and it just did feel like there was nothing new. And I go into a Jim Cameron movie always expecting some brand new thing that he's never done that we've never seen on screen, and some thing. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, I guess,
Yeah.
for me too in the movie. Like I would have loved to have it all just about the fire tribe, and
Or
that was
just you would explore
the
just a
dynamic.
little more, you know, that
Yeah.
okay, she's there now with him and things are going bad because this is not somebody who can be quote unquote tamed, you know, the way
Mm-hmm.
you want. Like that would have been totally fine because the other relationships, though a retread, they are rich, they are going
Yes.
deeper, so
Right.
that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But but yeah, they could have, yeah, that's probably one of the most disappointing things about this movie, only because it started so great.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, especially again, due to getting back to like the acting performances,
Yeah,
I think Una Chaplin, the way that her performance came through is so unique, and the way that she moved and like her
pretty
facial
amazing.
expressions were so different than the other actors, right?
Yeah.
That I was like, whoa, this is like a whole new voice in the Avatar, universe that I wish we had spent more time with her. And she was
Yeah,
kind of hot. And
extremely
seductive,
hot.
and like she was using those little drug thing and the dance stuff. Those scenes with Quaritch were so cool and kind of
The whole
funny.
psychedelic stuff
Yeah,
happens,
yeah.
and there's a lot of humor between the two of them too, which is great because these movies can be a little bit self-serious, you know,
Hmm.
of like, oh, all these big themes are just fun, good. I
Hmm.
like that, but some levity and humor is also good, and they bring that, which is I think pretty great.
Yeah, yeah. I find the Quaritch character even I loved him in the first film. Like Stephen Lang did a great job, but he was more of a uh very standard. I'll use the word cheesy, right? But that's kind of
A
what you
bit of a
want in that kind of
caricature.
kind of a caricature, right? He was a caricature villain, and now the Avatar version of him or the Navi version of him, there is this like comedic bent, even in the last film, but this one I thought they dialed it up a little bit more, where it
Yeah,
makes it more fun. Like he's like the most fun kind of character. He's having a good time in
yeah,
this universe, whereas a lot of these other characters aren't, like Jake and Neytiri and all these, they're struggling and it's like, oh, these
right.
hardships. He's like having a good time. He's like strutting around and like, oh, I'm gonna go to the Ash people and like, oh, this is cool. Like, look at these guns. And he has a smile all the time and cracking
Yeah,
little jokes. So he's kind of maybe one of my favorite characters now, honestly.
I
Even more
agree.
so than he was as a human. I think he works so much better as an avatar.
I agree. The other thing I should say that kind of took me out during the movie is I just cannot get over old Sigourney Weaver voice
Oh,
on
really?
child. I
Oh,
just
okay.
cannot. And the whole whatever was happening, the orgasm scene or whatever, where she's helping, you know, Spider and all of
Mm,
that, though very cool, but it's just all the voice stuff, you
hmm.
know. I just cannot get over that. I wish they'd done something with the voice, maybe change it a little bit, still have it be hers, but change it. But I that's the part that always takes me out. So whenever she's back, I'm like, oh gosh, old lady's back.
Oh, see, that didn't actually bother me, and I think she does a good job until the end of the film when you see both of them
Oh
on
yeah.
screen together and they're both talking. I'm like, wait, that is this literally the same voice. And that was the part I was like, okay, this is a little weird.
Yeah, that didn't help, but I felt
Yeah,
that throughout. And she has a pretty major role to play in this movie,
she
actually.
does.
Uh,
Yeah.
so But the sequences, you know, we haven't talked about the spectacles. I mean,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
so many spectacles from the jellyfish sort of stuff in the beginning, the squids at the end who sort of
Yeah.
take over all the ships, like so cool. Of course, the water stuff is incredible. Like,
Hmm.
I will say the high frame rate, though it's intended, in all the flying scenes, I'm not a big fan because that's when it
Hmm.
really feels video gamey or whatever. And in the big
Yeah.
what are those, the birds or whatever that they sit on that they're flying,
Hmm.
like that looks really fake. But then when they're like stationary by like water or somewhere, it's like absolutely magnificent. You feel like you're right there. So my mileage varies, I think, on the whole
Hmm.
high frame rate stuff. And then the scope and just the way the whole space is shown to us in various, lights and times of the day and
Oh yeah.
green or just the water. It's just incredible. You want to be there, and you are there actually.
I was gonna say, yeah, you actually literally are there, which is what is so
Yeah.
nice too about the runtime. Like, yeah, it's the longest Avatar. It's over 3 hours. For me, it went by like I wasn't like checking my watch and being like, okay, this
No,
I'm kind of getting
that's
bored.
fine.
And then when it's over, it's like, oh crap, I have to go back outside to Hollywood Boulevard and like back to like the real world. And it's just you really do feel like you're going on a journey to this other place and being immersed in it, which is why I do feel like if you want to see this film, you have to see it in 3D. Like there's no and ideally IMAX. I was actually watching a video of Jim Cameron this morning talking about like the ultimate place in the theater to sit. And he was
Mm,
like had the map of like the seats. He's like,
of
what you
course
want to
he
do
does.
is you want to sit. I know exactly. You want to sit like in sort of the front section so that your entire peripheral vision is just the edges of the screen. So he's like, you don't want to be in a place like we were sitting a little further back, right? Where Pandora's in front of us, but I could still out of the corner of my eye see like the amazing interior of the Chinese theater. But he's like, no, you should be up a little bit closer, not too close, but like so that all you see is the frame, so that you literally are inside of it. I was like, nice. This guy's got an answer for everything. He's the
Yeah.
greatest.
His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no sea too deep. Who's that? It's him, James Cameron.